Somewhere on this planet, right now, there's a light switch that hasn't been touched in 3 days because someone forgot to pay a bill. Multiply that by every human alive, all at once, and you get one of the strangest thought experiments in science. What if every person on Earth, all 8 billion of us, vanished tonight? Not died in a war, not burned in a fire, just gone. No bodies, no warning, no goodbye.
Your coffee maker would still be brewing tomorrow's pot. Your phone would still be charging. And somewhere over the Pacific, a jumbo jet on autopilot would keep flying toward an airport where no one is waiting.
This isn't a horror movie pitch. It's a real question scientists, engineers, and ecologists have actually tried to answer. How long does it take for a planet to forget the only species that ever wondered what a planet even was? Let's find out. Hour by hour, decade by decade, all the way to the end of time.
The first 24 hours, a world on autopilot.
The strange part isn't the silence. It's how normal everything still looks. Streetlights change color for cars that will never come. Elevators keep rising and falling in empty office towers, patiently waiting for a button that won't be pressed. In Tokyo's Shinjuku Station, the platform announcements keep playing to nobody, on a loop, forever, or at least until the power runs out. Here's a fact most people don't know. The modern world runs almost entirely on machines watching other machines. Air traffic control towers, subway systems, water treatment plants, they're built with redundancy specifically so that a single missing human doesn't cause instant collapse. It's a design philosophy engineers call graceful degradation. The system is supposed to fail slowly, safely, over time.
Which means the apocalypse doesn't start with an explosion. It starts with a whimper. A factory alarm nobody silences, a server room slowly overheating because a technician never shows up for their shift. Meanwhile, the animals notice first. Zoo elephants pace their enclosures, confused by the absence of keepers. Farm chickens, bred for generations to depend on automatic feeders, will actually be fine for a while. Automatic feeders are, ironically, automatic. But dairy cows are a different story. An unmilked cow is in genuine pain within a day, and many farm animals face a far harder road than the wild ones.
Week 1, the grid goes to sleep.
Power grids are shockingly fragile without human hands on them, and that fragility comes down to one word: frequency. Every power grid on Earth has to stay locked to a precise electrical frequency, 50 or 60 cycles per second, depending on the country. If supply and demand drift out of balance even slightly, automated protection systems trip breakers to prevent equipment from literally melting. Normally, engineers in control rooms rebalance the grid within seconds. Without them, this correction never happens, and grids begin shutting themselves down as a defense mechanism. Ironically, the very safety systems built to protect the grid are what kill it.
Nuclear plants are the fascinating exception. They're engineered with something called a scram system, an automatic shutdown that drops control rods into the reactor core the moment anything looks abnormal. It's the same failsafe that helped prevent a full meltdown at Fukushima's undamaged reactors in 2011. So instead of Chernobyl-style disasters, most nuclear plants would simply and safely put themselves to sleep within days. The far bigger danger isn't a meltdown, it's the spent fuel pools, which need active cooling for years and could eventually boil dry. By the end of week 1, most of the developed world has gone dark. Except for a curious pocket of exceptions: geothermal-powered Reykjavik, hydro-heavy regions of Norway, and any town that leaned hard into solar and wind, systems that by design need far less human babysitting to keep generating power, even if they can't distribute it anywhere useful.
Month 1. The smell of an empty planet.
This is where things get visceral. Refrigeration fails within days once backup generators run dry. In warm climates, meat, dairy, and produce in millions of stores and homes begin to rot simultaneously. A global stench event that, honestly, no movie has ever quite depicted accurately. Pipes freeze and burst in cold climates once heating systems lose power, flooding homes from the inside. In hot climates, without air conditioning, mold blooms explosively in humid buildings within weeks.
And this is when domesticated animals face their crisis point. Zoos become a particular tragedy. Predators can't be fed, and many die of starvation, while herbivores in adjacent enclosures might actually survive on grass. Meanwhile, freed farm animals, pigs, goats, cattle, begin doing something remarkable: reverting. Within a few generations, domestic pigs released into the wild regrow tusks and thick, bristly hair, essentially re-becoming wild boar. Scientists have already documented this de-domestication happening in real time with feral hog populations across the American South.
Year 1 to 10. Nature's demolition crew.
If you want to know what erases a house fastest, it's not fire, it's water, and its patient accomplice, mold. Roofing systems are designed assuming someone will clear the gutters, patch the flashing, replace shingles worn by UV radiation. Skip that maintenance, and within 5 to 10 years, water finds a way in. Once moisture breaches drywall, you get an explosion of fungal growth, and wood-boring insects arrive right on schedule. Termites, carpenter ants, powder post beetles. The unpaid demolition crew of the apocalypse.
Asphalt roads crack within a single freeze-thaw cycle without maintenance crews sealing them. Within a decade, saplings are growing straight through highway medians, their roots doing something remarkable. Tree roots exert enough hydraulic pressure to lift multi-ton slabs of concrete, a force strong enough that arborists call it biological jackhammering. This is also when the animal kingdom stages its comeback tour. We've actually seen a preview of this. During COVID lockdowns in 2020, researchers recorded measurable drops in ocean noise pollution and shifts in wildlife movement patterns within just weeks of reduced human activity. Now imagine that effect permanently, everywhere. Predator populations rebound first in places with abundant prey. Feral cattle and pigs make excellent meals for surviving wolf and cougar populations. Coastal cities become premium real estate for seabird colonies, who will happily nest in the girders of abandoned bridges.
Year 25 to 100. The Great Toppling.
Steel is strong. Steel is also a liar. It looks permanent right up until it isn't. Unpainted steel rusts through in a process called oxidation, where iron atoms bond with oxygen and literally flake apart, losing up to a millimeter of thickness per decade in wet climates. Suspension bridges, which rely on thousands of tensioned steel cables working in perfect harmony, are especially vulnerable. Corrode enough cables, and the physics of tension turns catastrophic in seconds rather than years. Engineers who've studied unmaintained infrastructure estimate most steel suspension bridges would fail completely within 100 to 300 years.
Skyscrapers face a sneakier enemy: concrete carbonation. Atmospheric CO2 slowly reacts with concrete, lowering its internal pH until the steel rebar inside, the skeleton holding the building together, loses its protective coating and starts rusting. Rusting steel expands up to 7 times its original volume, cracking the concrete around it from the inside out. It's essentially a building's skeleton growing until it shatters its own body. By the century mark, most glass and steel skylines have partially collapsed, but not everything falls at the same rate, and that's the fascinating part.
Year 500 to 10,000. The survivors. Some structures were built by people who, frankly, understood permanence better than we do. Petra, carved directly into sandstone cliffs in modern-day Jordan, has survived over 2,000 years, because you can't really damage a mountain by neglecting it. The Great Wall of China, built from rammed earth and stone across multiple dynasties, has sections still standing after 2,300 years, though most now lie buried under vegetation and soil. Machu Picchu offers maybe the best case study of all. Built by Inca engineers around 1450 using a dry stone technique so precise that mortarless walls fit together without gaps, the structures survived 500 years, entirely unmaintained and hidden by jungle, without a single earthquake toppling them. Peru sits on one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, and Machu Picchu simply refused to fall down. The pattern is clear: mass and geometry beat maintenance. The pyramids at Giza, the temple mounds of Cahokia in Illinois, the megaliths of Stonehenge, anything built as solid stone mass, without moving parts, without seals or gaskets or steel to rust, just waits.
The deeper question: what actually travels farthest?
Here's something almost nobody considers. The most enduring proof that humans ever existed isn't on Earth at all.
Every television broadcast, every radio signal, every bit of data we've ever beamed skyward is still traveling outward through space at the speed of light, in an expanding sphere roughly 100 light-years across already. Voyager 1, launched in 1977, is currently over 15 billion miles from Earth and still transmitting. A tiny gold-plated record of human music and greetings drifting silently that will likely outlast every building on this planet by billions of years, simply because there's nothing in the vacuum of space to erode it.
Back on Earth, the longest-lasting evidence would ironically be our garbage. Plastic doesn't disappear. It fragments into microplastics that geologists increasingly argue will show up in the rock record as a permanent marker layer, not unlike the thin band of iridium that marks the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. Some researchers have started calling this hypothetical future rock layer technofossils. Plastic, aluminum, and concrete fused into the geological timeline exactly the way seashells and bones fossilize today.
100,000 years and beyond. At the 100,000-year mark, virtually nothing recognizable remains above ground. Erosion, glaciation, and plant life have ground even the toughest monuments into unremarkable hills. But underground is a different story. Archaeologists in 1994 stumbled onto Göbekli Tepe in Turkey and discovered structures over 11,000 years old, so well preserved by burial that carved limestone pillars still show detailed animal reliefs. Burial, it turns out, is nature's best preservation technique, which means our subways, bunkers, and mine shafts might be the last recognizable human structures left, sealed safely below the reach of wind and rain.
Eventually, even that fails. Plate tectonics recycles the Earth's crust roughly every 200 million years, meaning almost everything at the surface today will eventually be pulled underground and melted back into magma, including, someday, the concrete foundations of every city ever built. And yet, we wouldn't fully disappear. Paleontologists have found fossilized bacterial mats called stromatolites dating back over 3 billion years, direct evidence of some of the earliest life on Earth. If single-celled organisms could leave a mark that lasted 3 billion years, it's a near certainty that human bones, fossilized under the right conditions, would survive long enough to be found by whatever species eventually looks up from a shovel and asks the same question we once asked about dinosaurs. Who were they?
That discovery might not happen for millions of years. It might be made by the descendants of crows or octopuses or some creature that hasn't evolved yet. But the Earth keeps receipts. It always has. The only guaranteed deadline is the sun itself. In roughly 5 billion years, it will swell into a red giant and very likely swallow the Earth whole, erasing every fossil, every layer of technofossil plastic, every trace, permanently. Until then, somewhere beneath the surface, a small piece of us is still waiting to be found.
We spend so much energy building things we assume will outlast us. Turns out, almost none of it will, except the parts we never intended to leave behind at all. If this kind of deep-time thought experiment fascinates you, subscribe for more videos that explore the biggest what-if questions in science. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into how our world really works. And drop a comment below telling us which human structure you think would survive the longest. I read every single one.